With a Nintendo StarFox flight cap, you can think like a Fox McCloud.
I hate to say it, but I don't think we'll be getting a new StarFox game anytime soon. It's not what I want, just something I've come to terms with. Though, we at least have a great series to fall back on, even with the divisive entries. So, StarFox will join the ranks of Punch-Out, F-Zero, and Chibi Robo in Nintendo Purgatory. But unlike those other games, StarFox has a passionate fanbase that will step in where Nintendo fails. Wait, a new F-Zero game came out? Oh, I take it back. Slippy, we got a chance. A few months back, I made a video detailing as many StarFox fan games as I could, and boy were they impressive. But there was a topic suggested in the comments. What about games that StarFox inspired? Ones that do their own thing, whether nearly identical or pretty different. I was surprised to find a slew of games StarFox had a hand in inspiring, dating back to as early as 1995, only 2 years after the original StarFox's release. So if you're like many, and want a new StarFox game and have already tried your hand at fan games, let's check out the inspired games. And just to note, I'll only be covering games that have proof they were inspired, either from developer comments or something similar. If I covered every game similar to StarFox, then we'd be including games like LEGO Star Wars or other Star Wars games. And just to note, I obviously can't cover every game out there. I wish I could, but it's just not possible. If I missed any, please let me know in the comments.
You are approaching Saturn. You are only seconds away.
What in the fuck?
I have arranged for you to meet my companion.
Panzer Dragoon!
A new generation of games redefining what a video game can be. A new franchise from one of the world's top developers. I give you Sega's Panzer Dragoon. This originally came out for the Sega Saturn in 1995, but I'll mainly be showing off the 2020 remake on Switch, Steam, PS4, and Xbox. This was developed by Megapixel Studios. Both versions don't really have any advantages over the other besides graphics. The physical versions do come with this short making of book, which mentions StarFox as an inspiration. This is a rail shooter similar to the early StarFox games, but with more of an emphasis on taking down every foe in your way. Using the shoulder buttons, you can change your view from front, behind, left, or right. Enemies will approach from all sides, so make sure you keep an eye out on your minimap. You play as a titular blue dragon and its rider, Kyle, spelled K-E-I-L, not Kyle. Kyle was simply a passerby to the dragon's battles with an evil dragon, who is attempting to reach a tower that will grant it ultimate power. With the blue dragon's original owner dying, Kyle takes the reins to stop the evil dragon. The two end up flying through a war-torn country while trying to stop the other dragon. So basically anyone and anything is trying to kill them. Shooting is done simply with A, while holding the button will lock onto targets to kill a few in one shot. It's a simple yet effective control style, which is perfect for a rail shooter. It's not too long of a game, only about an hour and a half per playthrough. Something common for when it originally came out, especially for such an early Sega Saturn game. But with the remake, it's interesting they didn't try to lengthen it, or include the second game. But the game is still a blast. It's split into 7 episodes, most ending with a boss. Episode 1 has you traveling through an ocean front. Episode 2 has you going through a desert while being attacked by these huge worm snake beasts. Feels a bit like Dune. Episode 3 goes through a canyon region which has been booby-trapped for the war. Who left these here? And why is the war going on? That's the thing about Panzer Dragoon. You know something terrible is happening in this fantastical world, but you're never truly sure what it is. Does Kyle even know? Well, what he does know is that he's being attacked by this Imperial ship that just popped in. The next episode, my favorite, has our duo traveling through this cramped cave system that becomes more mechanical the deeper you go. It's honestly so cool seeing where this world goes, even if it doesn't have much context. After that, we find ourselves right in the heart of battle in this forest. This was the level I died the most on when playing the game. It's hard to keep up with all the enemies here, but after a try or two, I got the hang of it. Episodes 6 and 7 take us through this destroyed city around the tower. Kyle and the dragon are too late to stop the black one from powering up. Only one thing left to do: try and stop it. It's a relatively easy final battle, all things considered. Only one phase. It mainly flies away while these smaller enemies attempt to take you out. With the dragon defeated, Kyle decides to fly into the tower to destroy it once and for all. Only for the dragon to throw him off and sacrifice itself. Panzer Dragoon is a great arcade experience. If you have an hour or two to waste, it's fun. Definitely a game of its time though, but I mean that in a good way. Who knows what the future holds for this underappreciated Sega franchise. Alright, so I'm gonna bend the rules I set a little bit. Released as a launch title for the Virtual Boy, this is Red Alarm. Now, it is a game similar to StarFox, but here's the kicker. Nintendo published this one. Yeah, the company that owns StarFox helped make this a reality. Now, it has been rumored online that there was a StarFox game in development for the Virtual Boy, with footage from a game that looks eerily like StarFox coming from footage from one of the events. And here we have a space shooter using primitive 3D graphics with vectors that Nintendo helped release. I'm going to assume that this game was either inspired by, or even at one point was, a StarFox game. Red Alarm is a rather interesting experiment on the Virtual Boy. A system that could do 3D perspectives but could barely run 3D graphics. A far cry from the later 3DS. And to note, I don't own a Virtual Boy, so I played this on an emulator, and for the sake of my eyes and yours, I played in black and white instead of black and red. And with that, we're ready to start the game. After sitting through a rather brooding but honestly impressive introduction where the ship, known as the Tech-Wing Fighter, prepares for its mission. A devastating world war has ravaged the Earth for 70 agonizing years, beginning at the end of the 20th century. During the later stages of the war, an automated battle system named KOS was developed. It became simply known as Chaos. What no one realized was that Chaos had become a sentient being with only one goal: survival. Without warning, Chaos released its armies onto the world to destroy its newfound enemy, all of humanity. Wow, truly incredible stuff, very deep. Now for the actual game. Yeah, it's a Virtual Boy game. I hate to give a cop-out answer like that, but this game just doesn't work on the hardware. With the wireframe graphics, it's hard to tell where I'm going at any point. If you ignore that, this is actually a fun game, but the issue is so big it ruins the experience for me. I'm sorry. So, the gameplay here is much more free-form than traditional StarFox, more like the free range levels of the series. You're able to shift through a few different speeds, alongside going in reverse. Although, you aren't shown what's behind you, so be careful when using that. You fly around and shoot at enemies, all the while you're continually reminded that you're playing Red Alarm from T&D Soft. Yeah, this keeps popping up. It was cool at first, but like, it keeps happening. And one of the enemies here is a giant floating face that blows polygons at you. Amazing! Definitely not Andros. Red Alarm is honestly a good game turned mediocre by the console it's on. It was basically dead on arrival. I wish I could recommend it, but I honestly can't. It's a shame Nintendo never tried fixing this up. It's so close to being great. You could tell there was so much effort put in, and they really tried and were so proud of it. But it just didn't pan out because of the Virtual Boy. This was on the SNES and the Nintendo 64. It would have fared so much better. Star X! All you did was take the F and the O out of the title. Alright, every game in this video I've been very nice to. I've gone over what makes them great, and how much inspiration they take from StarFox, and what they do to stand out. But here we have the only game where I'm not calling it inspired. I'm calling it a ripoff. Look at this gameplay. It looks like StarFox. Look at the graphics. Looks straight from the Super Nintendo games. This was developed by Graphic State, a company that mainly worked on licensed games for the Game Boys. Although with their track record, I wonder if they tried to get the StarFox license. They were pretty open about the game being inspired by StarFox. The game's director even mentioned it in an interview. But geez, you couldn't have done something a bit more original? Like, at least tried to give the game its own look and feel? Like, I could have showed you this and told you it was a lost Game Boy Advance StarFox game. You'd probably believe me, right? Alright, let me talk about the actual game. Maybe it's good, right? Well, it's okay. Our controls are simple. Move and shoot. And hey, it's a working shooter. It gets the job done. The plot follows the only survivor of a political peace group who attempted to make peace with a neighboring alien race. The aliens only want one thing: hard merchandise, which is apparently their word for slaves. It's now up to our handsome protagonist Rob to escape and put a stop to these plans. There isn't much I can comment on with the gameplay. What you see here is what you're getting. Now, I read other reviews of the game, mainly from when it came out. Most of these complain about the controls, but honestly, I don't find them slippery or anything. They're just like the game. They're serviceable. They work. They're good. Now, I'll be honest. The fact that this is working on a Game Boy Advance is very impressive. Whenever any Game Boy Advance game managed to show 3D graphics, it's cool. But I just wish the game tried to do something more original. Hell, this game came out when StarFox was an active franchise. 64 wasn't even 5 years old yet, and Adventures was coming out in the next September. While this may not have supposed to have been a ripoff, it just feels like one. Let me try to get back to the game. I'll be honest, I can't. Like, what am I gonna say here that's just not me going, oh wow, this is just like StarFox. I sure wish I was playing StarFox. Even the reviews at the time kept comparing StarX to StarFox. Even ones that liked the game. For example, Play Magazine said the game was one of the best Game Boy Advance games of 2002. And they still called it a StarFox clone. Really, all I can say is, if you like StarFox, you'll probably like this game, but wish you were playing StarFox. Okay, so one thing the game does that's pretty original is the multiplayer mode. Or at least, some people say so. There's no footage of it online, and trying to get multiplayer working on an emulator is hard. I could do it with actual hardware, but I'll be honest, I just don't care enough. And that's all I can really say about StarX. It's a graphically impressive game that's held back by trying to be something else that was popular. Now, if you want a great rail shooter on the Game Boy Advance, try the Iridian games. I couldn't find proof that these were inspired by StarFox, but I still thought I'd give them a mention. They're much more original and very underappreciated. Quick note, I do want to give the developers of StarX a little bit of credit. They developed the Game Boy port of Crazy Taxi, and while not the best game out there, it's a graphically impressive game. These guys definitely had a lot of talent. And here we have our first modern game, this little indie gem called First Squadron. This was released back in March of this year for PC, Switch, Android, and iOS. It's a neat little game from Raptor Claw Apps. This is a development team based out of Seville, Spain. The company has a bit of a following from its Planet Genesis series, apps that let you create your own solar system. But First Squadron is their first big game released on actual gaming devices. Let's get into it. The titular First Squadron is an elite team of pilots on a simple VR training mission, so there's no risk involved. We have our main protagonist Blaze, a confident and adept leader. Alongside him are the cocky Kiro and the nerdy Axel. I think you can tell who's supposed to be who here, but every character has enough personality to set them apart. So, to go to the actual gameplay, the game recommends using a controller to play through. And yeah, if you play this on consoles, that's your only choice. But I personally felt that the mouse and keyboard was the best way to play this game. It offers a unique playstyle that many other games don't offer, StarFox or not. Controls are simple. Use the mouse to move around, left click to shoot, or hold the left click down to target an enemy. And you got your barrel roll and missiles, which are activated with the E key and the spacebar respectively. This game keeps things simple on the gameplay side of things, which I would say is a good thing. It's much more pick up and play, like an arcade game compared to the other games I've talked about in this video. That's honestly the best way I can describe it, arcade-like. And unlike StarX, which I talked about before, this game has a lot more of its own personality. Now, this game is short, only 6 levels long and taking a little over a half hour to beat on the easiest setting. But what's here is fun. I really like the graphics and the music here. The wireframe and vaporwave aesthetics work here very well. And unlike Red Alarm, I can actually tell what is and isn't a solid object. This game's music, for lack of a better term, is such a vibe. Give it a listen and tell me I'm wrong. As Ollie Reynolds of Nintendo Life put it, it's a psychedelic StarFox. While you play, your teammates will chime in with some commentary. It's not the most insightful stuff out there, but it adds to the game's charm. Every stage ends with a boss, these being the most difficult parts of the game. They range from huge beasts to these seemingly alive creatures. Though don't forget, this is all just a simulation. Right? As you go further on in this simulation, the signal seems to keep getting interrupted. Oh my god, it's the Green Goblin. The vile General Grillis has hijacked the simulation. He's decided he wants to take out the first squadron while they're unprepared. The kicker? If he kills them in the simulation, they'll die for real. Or at least that's what I assume is happening. It's a little vague. Grillis fights you in this giant mech, sending out previous bosses to attack while he stays behind. But stay vigilant. You'll persevere through, Blaze. Take out his mech and his true form is revealed. A fast alien being whose slashes take up most of the screen. It's a challenging final boss, but a fitting end. With Grillis destroyed, Blaze comes to the conclusion that the virus he implemented in the VR world needs to be destroyed, along with the VR world. Is this the final flight for Blaze? I have no idea, the ending is very vague. There really isn't much to do after this ending. The only other thing is to play the game again on higher difficulties. Hey, I like a short game, but 30 minutes is very short. And that's really the only issue I have with the game. I just wish it didn't end so quickly. It feels more like a demo to something greater. And lo and behold, a sequel was announced recently. I hope for more there. For a console game, this is short. But don't forget, I mentioned this game was on mobile. It's actually perfect for on-the-go playing like this. If you buy any version of the game, I recommend the mobile versions. I picked it up after playing on PC, and it's much more serviceable like this. That being said though, if you are interested, I think any version will do. Hell, the PlayStation and Xbox versions were recently announced. So if you want those versions, then go ahead. Unlike Star X, which I talked about before, this game is obvious what it's copying, but it does its own thing. The gameplay is unique compared to StarFox, and they do have their own aesthetic. You can tell this isn't a StarFox game, and I greatly enjoy what it does here. I honestly can't wait for the sequel. And that's a few games that were inspired by StarFox. But, of course, not all of them. And these are all good to their own extents. Though if you play any of these games, make sure it's either First Squadron, Panzer Dragoon, or both. And this is really only the tip of the iceberg. I'll be making a second video soon about more of them, including EX Zodiac and Whisker Squadron. But if there's others I'm missing out on, please let me know. I'm really excited to check out more of these, and I can't wait to finish part 2.